Afternoon, Boston Buddies. Welcome to today's edition of Brunch with Boston Buddies. Today we have Mike Ferullo, founder of the Boston Bulldogs, which is a running club located in Boston, and they are dedicated to helping members of the community that have issues with addiction, as well as many other issues with mental health. And welcome, Mike. How are you today?
Good. It's a
Good.
pleasure for being on the show.
Thank you for joining us. It's you guys are very close. Boston Bulldogs Running Club. That's the Boston Buddies Running Club, and you have the same color blue that we use.
Right.
So, people confuse us, but I'd be happy if they've confused us because your organization does some great work. For those that have not been exposed to the Boston Bulldogs, can you give people a little explanation about what you guys do?
Sure. We started as a nonprofit 5 years ago, and I like to sort of explain it or describe it as a club for people in recovery, for people that are impacted by someone's addiction, and for anyone who believes in my vision of wellness and recovery. So that's basically, we have about over 200 members. You know, our chapters are growing. We started a chapter up maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, in Chicago. So we're growing as a nonprofit, and we're expanding, and we're trying to come up with a sort of a strategic plan that's going to take us to a much bigger level. Soon we'll hopefully have a wellness center where we'll be promoting all different ways of promoting all different aspects of wellness, you know, meditation and different things to help people in their recovery, and to find what I call the kind-hearted warrior that's in all of us, and I'll get into that.
That's great. The nonprofit started about 5 years ago, but your idea started around 2008, correct?
Right. Yeah. So I'll just give you a little history quickly. You know, I'm 71 years old. I've been a runner for about 45 years. I'm a clinical social worker, and long-time meditator. I'm in recovery. I got sober from heroin addiction around that time. And so, you know, I started running during the 70s when the running boom was big here in Boston. I lived near BC, where I went to school, and I used to see Bill Rogers and all the group doing their track workouts. And so being somebody with a lot of energy and trying to develop a new identity, trying to figure out what to do now that I wasn't going to, that I left behind the world of addiction and that whole culture. It was almost like moving to a new country, or like a teenager developing into sort of new, who am I now? I had dropped out of high school. I never even got to high school. I never got to the 9th grade. So I had a lot of catching up to do. I knew I had been in rehab many, many times, and it was very frustrating that I couldn't get myself moving in the right direction. But the last time I kind of knew, I don't know whether you want to call it this, was very, very unusual. I knew there was no turning back. And what I meant by that, I knew I wasn't going to relapse. I knew whatever I had to endure to move forward and to stay sober and find some meaning and purpose in my life and develop a career. I knew I was going to be able to manage it and deal with it. Mm-hmm. And being a kind of guy that's intense and jumps into things, I jumped into running marathons, and I ended up being in college. I found a way to get myself into UMass Boston and Boston College master's program. So, life was very challenging. I never went back to my friends in the community, and running played a really big part in helping me define myself in a more positive way. Mm-hmm. And it helped me deal with staying sober and feeling better and dealing with stress. And I just loved it. I loved running. I loved competing. I think I ran my New York Marathon sometimes. I don't particularly pay attention to the past, but sometime maybe 70, 77 or something like that. I don't remember. So yeah, and I was able to do pretty well in my life, to be honest with you. I developed a pretty successful career in private practice, mental health practice.
Mm-hmm.
I was very committed to my overall fitness, and I married a lovely woman. I have a great son. I talk about how I broke the cycle. My son's a lawyer now, and he doesn't know anything about addiction or that world. But if I didn't change, he would probably be in the same spot I was in.
Yeah.
So, like, what was it, 2008? How many years ago was that, Vinny?
12 years ago? I could do math.
Yeah. So, I always wanted to find a way to promote wellness in the mental health field and the addiction field because it helped me so much.
Right.
And I knew other ways that we were trying to help people in addiction, other therapies and things like that. But I wanted to promote the principles that helped me, which I will get into, but also the importance of the mind body and people taking responsibility for themselves, which is one of the first principles that I teach and expect people to practice in the club, which is what I call self-leadership, accountability. And then from there, we can find out our true potential.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an opportunity to go into this place called the Shattuck. It was a hospital, and they had a substance abuse component. And I went in there and told them I wanted to start running and talk about different aspects of exercise with the guys that were interested. It was a transitional program. They went from detox. It's called the stabilization program. They went from detox to this particular program, and they stayed there for about 8 weeks, sometimes longer. So there was about 40 of them living there at once, and it was tough. These guys were, struggling they had a history of struggling with criminal behavior and addiction. They were, in tough shape mentally and physically and spiritually. But those are the guys I wanted to work with because I was one of those guys. I was a young one of those guys.
Yep.
So basically what happened was, I sold them on the idea for every Saturday for, 8 years or whatever. I went there every Saturday and started running with the guys. I developed a running program. I got guys, we used to have informal fun runs, 10Ks, 5Ks, and they would get acknowledged and they get things, it was like a mini sort of running club within this treatment facility. And then I had one guy, we run a half marathon. Another guy we trained for the Boston Marathon, the year of the bombing. And he was a heavy smoker, long-term heroin addict, very tough guy, was an athlete in high school. And I got him to stick with the training. I don't know how he did it because he smoked and he wouldn't listen to me.
Sounds like a runner.
Smoke a cigarette sometime during the run. But anyway, he got to the starting line, and I ran the last part of it with him, and they stopped us right at the, the 24th mile. That was when the bombs went off, and we had to turn around. So anyway, it was really rewarding for me to give back in that way and to see guys feel good about themselves. And some of them went on, they moved on to halfway houses and they were able to stick with the running, but a lot of them, relapsed. So what brought me to starting, moving on and expanding to the greater community and this nonprofit is the fact that I couldn't hold on to them. They would move on once they finished the program.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating. So I started this running club, and people join. They're either coming out of halfway houses, they're in sober houses, or they've been sober for a while and they've been running, and they become members and they stay members and they get a lot out of it. There's all kinds of opportunities for them to grow mentally, physically, socially, and emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah, we have an organization in Philadelphia that's similar to that, the Back on My Feet organization, which helps
Yeah.
people, that are homeless for the most part, but a lot of them are addicts, and it gets them back on
So
their feet.
they're dealing with homeless people, and some of them are addicts, and
Yeah.
they're also, what they do is they try to provide some homes for people.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's kind of how it developed. And like I said, for the last 5 years, we've been going strong.
Yeah.
I had 12 people training for the Boston, ready to run the marathon this year. I was able to get numbers, and they did some fundraising, and that's a whole experience for people in early recovery to train for the Boston Marathon, especially when they grew up around here.
Yeah. Well, and they have to raise money too.
We helped them. Yeah, we helped them. Not all of them are in recovery. Some are just been impacted by someone's addiction, and
Yep.
But yeah, they're expected to raise money, and they do. They do a great job, and so it's exciting that they can experience the joys for them and for their family. A lot of them saying, before they started running with the club, they say, "I'm just used to running from the police," or I'm used to my parents visiting me in jail, or but to see their parents at the finish line of a half marathon or marathon, it's something transformative for them.
How much of a success rate is it for the people that finish and actually run? Obviously, not everybody's going to run the marathon. Not everybody's going to stay with the program and stuff. But if somebody actually does stick with it and runs a marathon or runs the Boston Marathon, how good are they at actually staying clean from that?
I'd say that everyone who stays in the club, for the most part, is able to stay sober and move forward in their recovery. And it's through the program that I established, where they come into the program, they go through what's called the Full Circle program, where they get a sponsor, they get coaching, they train for a 5K,
mm-hmm.
and they have a contract where they have to show up every week. They have to maintain a sobriety. They have to work with their wellness sponsor. So they complete that 5K, then they wait another 8 weeks, same contract, do a 10K, then they can go on to Full Circle 3, but that's optional. That could be a half marathon or a marathon. At that point, they're participating in their physical wellness, and they're showing up, and they're getting a lot of support, and they're starting to get more connected, and they're feeling better about themselves, and they're developing strong ties with the members.
Yep.
So once a member, if they're going to stay sober, they're going to probably stay a member. So once they complete Full Circle 1 and 2, Vinny, they're eligible to get into our Full Circle leadership program. They can apply. They have to actually they have to take an exam,
Mm-hmm.
They have to be able to talk about the history of the Bulldogs, why they're Bulldogs, the principles of the Bulldogs, and then they can, once they're in the leadership program, then they're expected to give back. They have a specific responsibility. For example, we have, each chapter will have a running coordinator. It's that person's responsibility to show up every week, greet the new people, run with the members, and they all have to sponsor the newcomers.
Mm-hmm.
So through that process, if they need help financially, we give them a stipend. So it's like a job for them. Some of them they get a real job, but obviously they don't make a lot of money. So, and then we have a Full Circle coordinator who helps me run the Full Circle program, and different Bulldogs. We have a social coordinator. So basically, my vision is to have Bulldogs come in, get sober, get involved, find meaning and purpose in their lives through their participation of the program, and be able to just find their potential, that they're able to heal and grow and be happy and be excited, not just for their physical accomplishments, but for their mental accomplishments.
Right.
The other thing that's pretty exciting is we have 4 Bulldogs in our leadership program that are just completed the RCAA certification to be running coaches.
Yep.
They're in the process of taking the exam. One just passed, you got a 94. So again, it's the whole idea of them running the club. They're going to be coaching people.
Right.
And somebody new that comes in, Vinny, says, well, I say to them, well, you're going to have a coach. And they get a little intimidated. I go, well, wait a minute. This coach is not only a member, this person's in recovery, and they've been through it. So they're going to be able to help you out. It's very empowering. It feels safe to that new person to get coached by someone else who's been through it. So this idea of having them get more and more involved in running the organization, and then getting the support financially, it's been transformative for them in the organization.
Yeah, it seems like once people maybe change the position to, even when they're in their worst positions, if they start giving back or trying to help other people, or they have some reason to go to a group session or something because somebody else is relying on them, or because they can go and help somebody else. At least in my experience, I've seen that helps with certain people, because just having the ability to give back, it gives them a purpose.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. And it keeps, so here's the thing. Sobriety is one pillar, right? That means not using drugs.
Yep.
The next pillar is recovery, which is finding purpose and meaning in life, because that's what's going to keep you sober. Accountability, not just to their own sobriety, but to others.
Right.
They have and so that's how what keeps us as humans able to move forward and deal with hardships, is because, we care about our kids, we care about our friends and our family, and the more that we are accountable and we have a meaning and a purpose in life, the more we're going to feel better, the more we're going to be connected, and we're going to understand that we just can't go off and run away. We have to stay present. So the 3 principles, that's the 3rd principle, Vinny, is giving back. So each person is expected to practice self-leadership, which is taking full responsibility for their internal and external experience. Like, figure out a way to get this to work.
Yep. No
excuses. You're responsible for your sobriety. You're responsible for everything. The 2nd principle is what's transparency. That's beginning to look inward. I teach mindfulness. It's very powerful. You got to find a balance between the physical and the mental, so they can be able to look honestly at what's going on without judgment, and be able to be honest with themselves, be able to work with whatever's happening, fear, anger, anything. And then also be able to be transparent and authentic with others.
Yep.
And the last thing is, the more you give back through, the aspect of generosity, compassion, and kindness, you're going to feel better, you're going to do better, and it's going to be a win-win situation. So what's exciting is when I see the members practicing these principles, I see them doing better, feeling better, and I don't worry about them. Because
right.
It's almost like if you have a child and you see a child doing well, they're getting good grades, they're taking responsibility, they're able to see what's going on with themselves, you feel better, you feel safe, like you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I feel that way for most of my Bulldogs that are really engaged in the program.
Yeah, it's just, I have kids and stuff, I have older children, and it's, it's up to them to make their own decisions. At a certain point, I got to let go and be like, let them make their own decisions. But I would imagine it's similar, where it's like you've got people coming to you, and you just kind of hope that they make the right decisions. You give them the tools. You can't control their decisions, but you can give them the tools to try and help their decision making. And then watch them grow and just hope they make the right decisions. It's tough.
And I tell them to have the right view, and the right view is that I can't fix you. You're right,
Yep.
but you have the capacity to deal with anything, and there's no need for you to backslide. I always say, if we're walking in the right direction, we want to keep walking. There's no need for you to use drugs. You just have to trust and have confidence in yourself and use your tools. Ask for help. Understand what the price you'd pay if you start to backslide.
Right.
So once they start utilizing that first principle of self-leadership and realizing that they do have an amazing amount of ability to stay on course and to live up to their potential. And a lot of them will say, Coach, I never thought I could run a marathon. The marathon or running is a good, metaphor, or a good way to, you participate, and then you find out, geez, I can do this. I can develop discipline to train for 3 months. I can I always say we have to do what we want to do, we have to do what we have to do, not what we want to do.
Right.
Who the hell wants to get up in Boston in February and run 15 miles in a blizzard?
I take
for
that
a long run.
Today I'd take it.
Say that again?
I said today I would take that.
Yeah, right. I know.
Yeah.
So this idea of loosening the knots to open your heart up and find what I call the kind-hearted warrior that's in all of us. I always use myself an example. I'm an 8th grade dropout. I'm not the smartest guy on the planet, but I just didn't turn back.
Right. Keep trying.
And here I am.
Never give up. Yeah.
I just kept going. My dad was a fighter, and he was a pretty famous boxer in the 30s, and he was an old Italian guy that used to say to me, we used to train fighters, and he never let me box, and that was an issue, but he would say to me, I don't want to work with anybody who's not hungry. And Italians got a way of speaking, like 2 or 3 things. You're supposed to know what they mean,
Right.
When I was a kid, I said, Dad, I don't know what you mean when you say hungry. Like, this guy's good. He's a good fighter. I used to go to the gym with him. And he'd say, he's not disciplined. He doesn't show up. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. You got to put the work in. I'm just telling them what was told to me.
Right. It's not, yeah.
How hungry are you to stay, for you to cross that finish line? How hungry are you to get your kids back?
Right. Yeah, I was talking about this this morning with Mitch Stoller from AACR, and being from Philly, Rocky is our he's our guy, the Rocky movie, and he was hungry, and he kind of exemplifies the Philly spirit. He's exactly what you're talking about. You need to be hungry, and even go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead. You got me excited. You're talking about Rocky. Now I'm going to go crazy. Go ahead.
Well, it's right in your wheelhouse because it's boxing and it's a hungry guy, and yeah. We actually have a.
Let me tell you the scene. Do you remember the scene? I think of. I remember he was in the bed and he woke up in the middle of the night. He started to feel a lot of self-doubt and fear. Like, what the hell is he doing fighting this guy? Do you remember that?
Was this in the first one?
The first one. You better know it. You're from Philly. I guess the idea is, he came to the realization that he's never going to know what he can do unless he tries it.
Yeah.
Unless he fights the guy. And that's what I tell the people. Hey, they say sometimes, Coach, I have failed so many times. I don't know if I can beat this one. I don't know if I can do this. And I go, listen, you're never going to know. Do you want to live with the fact that you didn't try?
Right.
And can I say something else about the boxers, how they are a true champion? My dad thought, back in the 30s, Vinny, they fought 15 rounds, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there, but I remember 15 round bouts.
after 12 rounds, you're gonna lose the fight.
Right.
You're getting your ass kicked. And my dad would say, I got 3 more rounds to take this beating, and then I can sleep at night. But if I know if I go down now and I give up with 3 rounds left, I'm going to have to live with that the rest of my life.
Right.
That's profound.
Yeah.
That's what keeps us going to finish a marathon, or keeps us going, because we don't want to live with the idea that I gave up.
Yeah.
And the reason addicts keep relapsing is because they keep giving up, and they keep living with that feeling of being feeling defeated, and feeling like they just have no inner strength, and they feel hopeless and helpless. To understand that that was the addiction, that it doesn't need to be that way.
Right. And that's, well, with running itself, and especially training for a marathon, you might see online, all the success stories, and people always posting the great workouts. But I don't know anybody that always has great workouts. You fail, or a lot of people fail more often than they succeed. I know I do. It's just you just gotta expect it and move on and try and do better the next time.
Failure is important. I welcome failure.
Right.
I welcome success. I always say, I'm a vulnerable guy. I will get my ass kicked. I don't mean physically.
Right.
I will fail. Started the Bulldogs, tremendous amount of responsibility for me. I don't get paid for this. My wife does. I didn't know anything about a nonprofit. I'm a runner. I'm a clinician, social worker. I practice mindfulness meditation, and I'm in recovery. I didn't know anything about running and now we're getting big, and it's like, oh my God, what happened?
Right.
So I failed a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes in the last 5 years, and it's hard for me to tolerate that, but it's through the mistakes that we grow. So I say to people in recovery, don't make it a big problem when you fail or you don't finish a marathon because something happens, or, it's not a problem. It's just life. So failure is important.
I agree. That's it. I was telling you, I work in software, and one of the things that we try and stress to all the younger guys that come in is fail fast. You're going to fail. It's a given. You are going to fail, but try and fail fast. Try and figure it out right away. Don't go 3 years and figure out you failed. Go every couple of weeks, and go solicit feedback and get feedback and be like, oh, am I going down the right path here?
Yeah. Get back up. And I think there's too much emphasis on, these poor kids today, they got to get all A's. And I have a friend who teaches in graduate school, and he tells me some of the parents call him. Imagine that. These are like young adults in graduate school. Call him and say to him, why did you give my daughter a C? She's never gotten a C before. That C can be life-changing for that kid. But, all the people come in, oh, you can't give me a C. I got to get A's every. It's terrible, because if we can just understand, like you said, what can we get out of this? And don't make a big deal about it, because there is suffering and failing. Yep. But if we make it a problem, then we got what I call the double arrow. We got the suffering from the consequences of the failure. Then we got the other arrow of like making it a big problem rather than learning from it.
Right. I don't know anybody.
You have to be taught to people, Vinny.
I don't know anybody that's done everything right the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you were talking about the Full Circle program, but you also have a Junior Bulldogs program too, right?
Yeah, we're developing that. It started with my vision of trying to help younger kids understand the importance of these principles of self-leadership, transparency, and connecting by giving back and caring about other people, that it's going to help them feel better, and engaging in physical and mental wellness as an alternative to helping them with their mental health issues. A lot of them, especially kids at risk that come from families of addiction or dysfunctional issues or trauma, these kids are at risk for substance abuse and a lot of other things, mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to promote these principles and getting them to exercise instead of getting engaged in destructive behavior is important to me, because I was one of those kids that were at risk, and I didn't get the attention because back in the, if you had problems, learning disabilities or ADHD or
Yep.
you had family, it was always like, just, you're a bad kid if you don't fit in.
It was a behavioral problem, or they thought it was behavioral. Yeah.
Well, you just thought you were, yeah, you were a bad kid. So you weren't wanted, basically, just, we're not going to help you.
Right.
Get your shit together or screw.
Right.
That's the Junior Bulldogs. And we've been able to go into residential programs where kids live there either because their parents, they were taken away from their parents, or they've had emotional behavioral problems and they needed to go into, it used to be called an orphanage, but now it's more of a clinical residential. Some of these kids live there for years.
Yeah.
And so we start little running clubs up there. I go up there, we run with them. We get them to train for a 5K. We give them all the Bulldog swag. And, they're able to use running to help them deal with their mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
We got an epidemic here with young people. The epidemic is anxiety and depression, especially anxiety, clinical anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now, we have more and more kids. They need to be introduced to ways of coping with their minds and dealing with their anxiety through exercise and through mindfulness. So I'm trying to promote that because as a clinician who's worked in the schools with a lot of teenagers, and it's the suffering that they're experiencing, and sometimes they just keep it quiet, and then they start abusing drugs. And if you ask them, well, why didn't you tell your parents or the guidance counselor? They'll say two things. One, I didn't want to get in trouble, and B, I didn't want to disappoint my parents if they found out I was using drugs to help me cope with my depression and anxiety. I didn't even want to admit out, especially boys. So get them to acknowledge and break the stigma. It's another mission of mine. How do we break the stigma and get kids to come out, people to say, yeah, I have I have anxiety. How can people say I have a problem with drugs and not worry about getting fired or being judged? That's why people don't get help, Vinny.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a guest on last week from the Minding Your Mind organization, and they said the exact same thing as you. They're trying to break the stigma of mental health. And the young lady we had on, actually, she had an addiction, but then she also then started exercising, and she had an addiction to exercising, which became unhealthy. Just helped, like she was exercising too much, worrying too much about her weight, and had eating disorder, and it brought on other things as well. So these mental issues, bring up, they show up in different ways in different people.
Yeah, so we're very aware of the addictive component of running it, so we're really on guard for that. And we help people understand that, they are going to get injured. They have to have alternatives. I say you have to have a lot of tools in your recovery toolbox.
Yep.
And first thing, I've had a lot of injuries. I would speak with the thing in the pool. I'd be running in the pool. What do they call that? The belt there.
The belt, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be doing all kinds of cross training, and because I needed something else, because we know the physiological changes that occur when you've been running 20 miles a week, 25 or more, and the mental changes. So we have to really be there for our Bulldogs when they get injured. But another thing that brought me to mindfulness meditation was exactly what you said, Vinny. I ended up using running to avoid dealing with things. And I crashed and I hit a bottom, and I realized that, I had to find something else besides running, and stop using running to not deal with things. And I know a lot of I belong to running clubs, and a lot of guys, it's like golf. They don't want to deal with their marital issues. They don't want to deal with anything. They just want to keep playing golf and keep running.
Right.
So I get into mindfulness meditation, which is really settling your mind down and looking at what's happening. That combination of mental development and continuing to exercise is very, very powerful. It saved my life. I go on retreats once a year, silent retreats for 5 to 8 days. I don't speak, and we don't talk, and it really. And we have a meditation class here. I teach twice a week on Zoom. So to offer them the importance of stillness, solitude, quieting the mind, and getting the body active. That's a perfect fit. Like if you're trying to make the perfect pasta, the perfect sauce, you gotta have the right fit, right?
Right.
What's the right ingredients? You'll hear different things about the right ingredients for a meatball. My family would talk about it for hours. You gotta do enough bread. But
right.
we gotta find the right ingredients in life, Vinny.
I agree. And it's different for everybody. And just because somebody's your kid doesn't mean they're gonna like the same thing as you. And
That's right.
Everybody's their own person.
So the giving back program is very, very important. We believe that through giving back, we stay connected and we help. And so once a month, we'll go down to where the homeless addicts live, and we'll give out food, and we work with some of the shelters. Okay. A lot of the money that we raised, fundraising efforts, go to the Junior Bulldogs, go to the giving back, go to the Bulldogs that are coming in. We give them gear, we give them a stipend. But even right now with this epidemic, we have an emergency fund for people that got laid off, so we could provide money to our Bulldogs to help them out.
Wow.
We were able to give back to the first responders in the clinic, nursing and doctors in the hospitals, provide food for them. But on an ongoing basis, the Giving Back program is where we're out in the community, letting people know about the Bulldogs and how healthy we are, and we were there. A lot of the Bulldogs were homeless, and they were in the places that we're visiting.
Yep. They're
able to talk to the residents and to the street guys. Another cool thing that I came up with, I don't want anybody stealing this one. We're going to start up, there's the Narcan kits that save people's life.
Yep.
You've heard of Narcan, Vinny?
Yep.
Well, we have access to it. Luckily, it's expensive. But we're going to put a Boston Bulldog Narcan team together. Well, there'll be a group of us when this is over with our backpacks, running around the streets. We're runners, makes sense. We're going to run around to the streets where the homeless people are and talk to them about Narcan, give them a quick training so they'll have the Narcan in their back pocket or their backpack. And so as runners, this is something we can do.
Yep.
We can all peer up and we'll go over to this area of Boston and we'll hand out the Narcan. We'll go over to this area. And there's nothing more meaningful than giving back.
I agree. It changes your perspective on things, and it's almost like it gives you a different type of high. It does something to you. It gives you some sort of high when you're giving back.
And so that's the high of running, the high of giving back. For people that are used to instant gratification and drugs, it's a replacement.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something that they're able to feel better about.
Yeah.
So there's a method to all this stuff, this is the stuff that keeps people sober and keeps them coming back. And the other thing is, I talk about this in recovery. If you're in a community that's healthy, you're going to have fun, and fun's a big part of living a normal life and being happy and staying sober. You'll talk about people that they have to go to their AA, AA is an amazing thing. And they have fun, but we really promote, we all get together, we run races together, you see everybody smiling and laughing and feeling good about themselves and feeling good about one another. And that's a high right there, Vinny.
Yeah. And you've got a couple of the other Boston buddies that have been on the show recently that help you out as well. Becca Peasy and Jack Fultz are part of your organization.
On my board of directors. They're my ambassadors. Jack's a very good friend of mine. Jack, as you know, won the Boston Marathon, 76. He volunteers his time and coaches the runners for the training for the marathon.
Mhm.
And Becca Peasy found out about us. She's, as everybody knows, Becca, right? She won
Yep.
the she won twice. She basically lost a good friend to addiction, and so that's how she found out about us. And she supports our mission, and we support her race. And the Bulldogs love to hear, her speak and run with her when they're training for their long runs. And she mentioned something that, I talk about the way that she phrased it is somebody's, how do you do it? How do you run 7 marathons in 7 days? And she basically said, every day you got to get up and you run a marathon. You got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And that's a big part. People and getting off of drugs don't like being uncomfortable. They have an aversion to it.
Right.
People that have been living life, we can put up with the bullshit at work and put up with this, but learning to deal with being uncomfortable is a big part of learning to live in life, because there is suffering.
Yeah.
If you run a marathon every day in 7 continents, if you don't suffer, you're not human.
Well, we did just have Michael Wardian on too, and I don't think he suffered. He cruised through them. I think he averaged a 244 or something, 243 for the 7 marathons.
Yeah. So there are guys like that. I'm always amazed. They're around. There's Muhammad Ali's, there's Michael Jordan's running.
Yep.
I got a kid that's in my club. He's not in recovery. Patrick Karen. He's 21 now, but he's been with me since he's been 18. Brilliant kid. He holds some sort of record for his age. He ran 100 miles. Huh?
Trail guy? He a trail runner?
Yeah. He's one of my Bulldogs. He's like a son to me in a lot of ways. He basically ran a 8-minute pace for 100 miles. He's just wired that way. He'll meet with us and run with us, and I'll go, where you coming from? He goes, I just did the 26-mile course. He'll run 26 miles, then he'll run 10 with the Bulldogs.
He's in our group. He's a Boston buddy too. Yeah.
Oh,
he's been with us since 2017. Yeah. I met him.
He'll tell you about the Bulldogs. He'll be listening to this. Patrick, I love you, brother.
Yeah, I've met him. He's a nice kid. Yeah.
Good kid. Yeah.
So what can we do to help? You guys have a race this weekend, correct?
Yeah, so we have a virtual race. Every year we have a Run for Recovery here in Boston. Mm-hmm. It's at Franklin Park. It's a famous cross-country course. A lot of the famous people in college and high school have run this course. And obviously this year we weren't able to run at Franklin Park. So we're having a virtual run, and that's this weekend, May 15th to May 17th. And also every year we have a tribute to people who have lost their lives to addiction, and we have people speak about losing a significant person in their life. And so that's all on our website. If you go to Boston Bulldogs Running and you click on events, Run for Recovery, you'll see the tribute page.
Okay.
Becca's on there. Jack's on there. And we have this woman who lost her brother. It's incredibly emotional. We're trying to promote healing and connectedness and letting people know that, even though they've lost a loved one, we're with them. And and it's very, very, the tribute is very powerful and very important in addition to the race. And we're really excited. We have over 400, maybe over 400 runners. And I'm thinking that's pretty good for a virtual race.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hoping that if you guys consider running it, the money goes to all the things I talked about. You can sign up, go to the Boston Bulldogs website. You can sign up there, and it would be great if I think we can get the numbers up to 500 before the weekend.
Well, this weekend we're starting a virtual 5K tournament of champions. So there's no entry fee, but what I can say to the people that are doing it, there's 128 runners doing it. you know, if you have the ability, you know, sign up for this Boston Bulldogs 5K, because they're going to be running a 5K anyway for our group, but they can
That would
sign
be amazing.
up
And we
for
have
you.
teams. You get,
Yeah.
yeah. So that would be amazing, and um, I would really, really appreciate it. And I'm a Boston guy. Grew up with the marathon, and you guys come down here, and I'll take you to a couple of my favorite Italian restaurants. Not
I'm
all,
in.
not all of you, but what?
I'm in.
I know you're in, Vinny. I definitely know you're in.
You got to come down to South Philly. I'll take you to some good Italian places.
Yeah, I told you my mother was born there. Always wanted to run the marathon there. I got one more marathon left. I was excited. I was supposed to run Mount Washington this year. Trying to inspire and compete with the young Bulldogs. I told them I'm going to beat them up that hill. That's a 7-mile race. They canceled it on me.
Yeah. Well, right now Philly's on. We'll see. And it's the only marathon in the world where you can actually finish and then run the Rocky Steps as soon as you're done.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
you got that. Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah.
So all right. So let me just recap. So Boston Bulldogs Running Club is the name of the club. The website is bostonbulldogsrunning.com.
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. And Boston Bulldogs, if you go, just Google in, Boston Bulldogs Running Club, you'll get to my website. And you just click on events, and you'll see our Boston Marathon team. You'll see the history of the Bulldogs. I had the good fortune to be in Runner's World magazine. They did a video of the Bulldogs. Yeah, it'd be great if you guys would support my vision of wellness and recovery. We have a lot of people that are in the club that have lost loved ones or have a significant other. They suffer so much.
Yep.
You can only imagine what it's like, Vinny, to have a kid who has an addiction problem. You're always worried about whether you're gonna lose them, and
yep,
it's terrible. Yeah. So they need to find a way to get better and promote wellness for themselves too.
Yeah, that's one of the things that bonds this group that we have. Actually, is we do ask people to do an intro video and ask them to post a video as to why they started running. A lot of them had some sort of traumatic event happen, and obviously some of them had addiction issues, or they lost somebody to addiction, and then they turned to running as a coping mechanism or as an escape. But it binds people, because then the people find each other who have had this similar experience, and they connect usually, and they become lifelong friends. There's been so many people that have come up to me and said, I've met so many friends on this group, just from people that had similar experiences. They really do bond with each other. I think posting a video and sharing your experience has helped our group. But just knowing somebody else has done it and gotten through it is really, really helppful.
To understand why these programs like yours and mine are succeeding, it's important to understand that there's been a breakdown of social institutions. The family, yep. Religious. People don't go to church anymore. People are so hungry to connect in a community, mm-hmm. And we have an epidemic of loneliness in this country. People living alone. 1 out of 4 people in the city. We have an epidemic, a chronic epidemic of people in physical pain. There's 100 million people that have been diagnosed with chronic physical pain. They have the highest rates of suicide, Vinny.
I believe.
People are in pain. Their bodies are not feeling good. Their mental health goes down the tubes. They get addicted to drugs. They're killing themselves. That's why we need to provide a community for people to help them not feel so alone, and help and promote physical health.
Yep, I agree.
So people, like I said, people are hungry to be connected, and we're here, you're here, and this is why people are joining your club and your organization and mine, and they get something out of it,
Yep. That's why I started it originally. It was like I needed some inspiration, needed some help getting motivated, and I needed people that were doing something similar to me, because I couldn't find people around me my family doesn't run. Like my friends don't run. And I needed somebody that had similar experience that knew what I was going through. And
And look what you've created. I mean, look how, I can only imagine how many friends you have, Vinny. No, through this.
Yeah, no, it's been a whirlwind ride the last 4 years, believe it or not. And this year especially has been great.
Yeah. And you know, the crazy thing is we're both going to continue to grow. Listen, the most important thing is what one's intentions are. You know, if we have what's called in Buddhist, I study Buddhism, and it's called the Eightfold Path, right intention, right effort, and if your heart's in the right place, and people are going to want to get behind you, are going to want to be connected with you. If you're not full of greed and all of these other things, then, you know, success is going to follow. I live by the motto of credibility and visibility. I want everybody to know about the Bulldogs, and I want to do what my parents taught me, which is do the right thing. That's all I heard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll definitely run with you guys. You got, let you guys know about our group. I'm sure some of our members will reach out to you and join your group as well. We're definitely still planning on being there in September. And if we do a shakeout run the day before. We were going to have about 500 people there this year for the shakeout run. It's just like a 3-mile run the day before the marathon. So you guys will be
definitely
welcome.
Connect.
Yeah.
And we meet one of our chapters meets at I think it's the 22 and a half mile mark right near Boston College.
Okay.
We run from there. So yeah, we'll definitely connect if you come. And we're having a marathon meeting next week. We're not sure. I don't know if I should say this. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But
nobody knows.
We got to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Until they say no, we still got to train. That's all we can do. Yeah, still got to train. You know what? I'm doing it not necessarily for the marathon anyhow. This is what I do.
Yeah.
We run no matter what.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of cross training with my trainer. It's called stability and mobility training for runners. And I'll tell you, getting my glutes fired up and working on my hips and getting my hamstrings stronger, all these exercises, I haven't felt this good in years. And I keep telling these runners, if you're going to, how do you do it, coach? You're 71, you're still running, you know? You got to put the work. It's more work. I got to put more work into being able to run than actually running.
Right. It's the preparation and the recovery. Yeah.
All the training that but you do your strength and mobility exercises every day, and you get out there and you're more balanced. You're stronger. Your knees you're in good shape, and there you go. But I got one more marathon. Who knows, Vinny? Maybe it'll be in Philly.
Well, we would love to have you. Bring your whole gang down here.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you. All of us run up at the steps at the very end of the marathon. It's a great experience. It's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Appreciate all you're doing for the community. I hope we see a lot of Boston buddies sign up for the Run for Recovery up on the Boston Bulldogs Running.com site. And I hope we can connect in the future, and I'll see you in September.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask my assistant, one of my Bulldogs, to send you. Maybe can I send you a link to the race, and
sure,
maybe you can post it? Is that a good way to do it?
Yeah, I'll post it on this video, on the comments of this video for everybody to see.
Okay, I have your email. Then I'll just send it to you.
Yes.
All right, Vinny.
All right, thank you.
Take it easy, brother.
Bye-bye.